42 presets, over 100 hours of footage, and one moron obsessed with presets. This truly was a gauntlet made for the ages. I am so fucking good at this game! Oh my fucking god! Actually just firing squad Peter. What the fuck? He's just stuck! He's door stuck! Okay, I guess we're playing without vertical missiles then. Oh! Oh no! What the fuck? He bro comboed me! Are you actually fucking serious? Yo! Kate! Yeah! Oh my god. Let's fucking go! Yes! Oh, yes! Suck my fucking dick! Suck my fucking dick! BAM! Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, Molten AMF here. This video stands as the culmination of many months of streaming and over a week of data compiling. Today, I'm going to give the most definitive and comprehensive AC6 preset tier list that you will ever see. This time with some decent audio editing as well. Alright, I get it! All this for the simple reason that hyperfixation is one hell of a drug. Let's not waste time, let's get straight into it. This video will be split into 3 sections. Firstly, I will establish the preset gauntlet, the metric by which every preset was used. I will explain why each mission was chosen and why I avoided others, to hopefully make clear why each mission was chosen. Secondly, I will cover the performances based on the missions. This will be in service of explaining why some presets work well there and others don't. An exceptional AC killer might work well at the Vespars, but suffer against the crowded Redguns. Lastly, I will tier each preset, starting from worst to best, elaborating on its position as I go. As always, timestamps will be on the video. Let's begin by establishing the gauntlet. The preset gauntlet, in my opinion, is the best 23 missions to test build quality. We have AC fights, fodder fights, the bosses, endurance fights, and many combinations. The biggest reason for doing this instead of just starting from a new game is because many missions are very samey. A few no combat missions, a few with only light fodder, and easy solo AC fights, many of which are time sinks. I wanted to slim down the missions to give the best impression of preset quality as well as lower times. I'm going to briefly discuss why each mission was either included or not included. Destroy Artillery is a simple destroy stationary objective mission. Time difference is only a speed difference. Grid 135 is a simple fodder killing. While the amount of fodder could give advantage to some ACs with better AoE, the simplicity of this mission makes it difficult to justify placement. Transport Helicopters is a simple destroy objective mission. Destroying the tetrapod could provide some differentiation, but it's otherwise nothing. Tesla Pilot is a simple 1v1 AC fight against a really bad AC. It's not worth, in my opinion. Damn original. I could honestly see an argument we have fodder killing a tetrapod in an AC. Unfortunately, it's still really easy and the fodder is also present in the ult mission, so I didn't include it. Damn ult. This is the first mission we included. This fight is one of the hardest. Volta and Iguazu are very complementary kits. Saving dodges for Volta's burst leaves you open to Iguazu's sustain, and not focusing on Volta can easily result in unexpected staggers. You want to kill one of the ACs before the other AC arrives. The faster an AC can kill, the easier the mission is. If not, you face a 2v1, even a great AC could lose. It's a very good differentiator. Destroy Strider. It's very long and it's just a simple destroy stationary objective mission. Strider Escort. This mission was a very difficult decision. Many commentators during the gauntlet asked why this mission wasn't included, and it came down to 3 reasons. Firstly, I've already recorded every preset on this mission. I just never uploaded them to YouTube. Secondly, because I already know how they performed, the majority did well and won in a single attempt, however, about a quarter struggled significantly. and adding an extra 30 to 60 minutes to some of the runs would make bad content, especially because thirdly, I don't believe this mission represents preset quality, because the difficulty of this mission is based entirely on the build, specifically if the build has explosive weapons. To explain what I mean, I'm going to ask a question. What is the difference between the bubble guns and the flamethrower? They are both overheating, sustained fire, high damage, low impact weapons that provide a secondary helpful effect on hit. The finer details like damage, firing time, and cooling vary, but fundamentally these weapons are very similar. The major difference in this case is that one is explosive and melts the enemies, while the other is energy and literally does single digit damage. These 3 reasons made me not include them in the Gauntlet. If you really want to see these attempts, comment, release the escort files, and maybe I will. Wall Climber. Fundamentally, kill 2 stationary targets and a tetrapod with an easy boss at the end. The Juggernaut is simply a really easy boss as well, so in tandem with the long mission I decided not to include. Combat logs. It's a simple AC fight against the easiest AC in the game. Not included. Prisoner Rescue. Exceptionally long, and unless you fail majorly, the only time difference is the speed of the Nile kill. It's just not worth the time. Investigate bars. Really easy considering many of the AC spawns are just the same. Inspection Obstruction. The second inclusion. It's a good demonstration of killing fodder at speed, followed by a semi-difficult boss fight. The Cataphract and Eckdroimoi can both face a challenge for some ACs, and doing them at the same time amplifies that. Watch point. We got fodder killing, an AC fight, and then Balteus. It's an obvious conclusion. Ult was ignored because killing the ghost is easy, but just a pain in the ass, so I just chose the faster option. Grid 086. A choice I deliberated. On the one hand, we've got 2 ACs and a boss. On the other hand, it's very easy from both the ACs and the bosses. I chose to include, but make killing the 2 tetrapods at the start mandatory. This mission did produce some good variants, however, so it seems like it was worth it. Dozers. Easy fodder killing. Data Breach. It was considered, but I chose not to because at the end it's just some movement followed by an AC fight with some ghosts. Looking back, some differentiation could definitely be present in the speed of the Iguazu kill and maybe including the tetrapod. I could definitely see an argument for its inclusion. Sea Spider. A high HP and stability boss. However, it was very easy. I think I can elaborate on the problems later in the next section. Survey data. Simple fodder killing where time difference is minimal. Refuel base. A movement section combined with a boss seemed like a good combo, so included. Kill Swinburne. It's an AC 1v1 with a rather meaningless Metal Gear Solid section beforehand. Tunnel. No necessary combat. HC and LC. A fast boss kill mission seemed like a good one to include. Survey Helicopter. The helicopter boss kill that also included some ghost combat beforehand seemed good. Survey Domain. Same as before, but an AC 1v1. It didn't seem worth including over or instead of the previous. Missile Support. Extremely low variance in time, slow, and not fun. Enforcement Squad. It's a very difficult endurance mission. Mistakes can be costly and the HC boss at the end is very hard. So it's very punishing. A worthwhile choice. Cataphract. We got another fast kill boss mission. Spaceport. There's a lot of stationary target destruction and then a mediocre boss fight followed by more waiting. Simply not worth. Brute. Fundamentally just a long movement mission followed by an easy AC fight. Raven. It's just one AC fight. Branch. A 3v1 AC fight that rewards fast kills and punishes low damage, while also giving a good variance of ACs to fight. Included. Data Recovery. No combat. Coral Export. Slow, low time variance, and incredibly infuriating if a mission fail does occur. Iceworm. All but one of the ACs will have an extremely long attempt that would not be fun to play or to watch. Or we would need to change builds for all of the presets to get a low time variance mission. There's just no point. Depth 1. Fodder kills in a stationary target with low time variance because all ACs fall down at the same speed. Depth 2. AC fight and a boss fight with some movement. Worthy in my opinion. Cold Core was chosen for its high difficulty. Depth 3. Just fodder and a single AC kill, not worth it. Redguns. I think the best demonstration of ability to kill fodder fast and efficiently, while also dealing with a relatively tanky AC quickly. The fastest time is relatively set, but you do need to be fast to hit that time. Vespars. Versus 2 ACs of varying speed and weight that both have high damage melee that can easily kill an AC, rewarding high stagger. Included. Killer Keith. It's a simple 1v1 AC fight. Territory Survey. Rusty and Flatwell fight is fairly quick and also rewards consistent AC output that can hit fast targets. The Rusty only ult was excluded for being objectively redundant to the ult version. Coral Convergence. 2 AC fights and a boss fight. It's the goddamn IBIS, bro. Xylem Defense. Slow, easy, and little time variance. Corporate Forces. Almost didn't include. Barely scraped by because of the HC and Freud. In retrospect, probably could have included the other LC. Carmen Line. Unfortunately, just a single AC fight after a long movement section. A lot of build weaknesses mitigated by the map gimmick as well. Ayre, one of the final bosses, included. Eliminate Carla. A very hard mission when the Snail kill is forced. Having enough ammo and health after killing Snail for Chatty and Carla is a challenge for many presets. Dry Block. 2 boss fights against the Cleaner and Snailteus. Obviously included. Bring down the Xylem. I did debate this, however, Volta is strong and the mission is quick, so included. Coral Convergence ult. Killing 4 ACs with no repair kits is a struggle for most ACs, and the final pit is a hard fight by itself. MIA. Considered, but the fodder, AC, and HC kills are fairly easy and the mission is long, so it's excluded. Xylem Control, no necessary combat. Core Release, it's the final boss, bro, of course it's included. Additionally, the runs of Howl, Institute, and Locksmith have been altered to properly represent their times, i.e. the mission quits in Howl and Institute and the accidental mission reset for Freud. And now, before I move on to the mission analysis, I'd like to ask you, if you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe, it means a lot. And enough pandering, let's get on. So let's begin the analysis of each of the missions. Volta and Iggy. This mission features a brief kill fodder section followed up by a very difficult 2v1 AC fight. The fodder is no problem. I noticed slight variation between the ACs and killing them, but overall at similar times. The real meat and potatoes was Volta and Iguazu's fight. Iggy is an upper lightweight with high impact and good defenses with his shield. Iggy can be difficult to stagger if not caught by surprise at the start, but his overall low health pool means that a high punish is very effective. Volta on the other hand is a heavy tank with high burst damage and impact, with range at mid to close. Volta is very tanky but is also vulnerable to getting hit. High burst and otherwise hard to land attacks can be very good here, as well as any AC with good range or mobility, as the grenades aren't terribly hard to dodge and the Zim does nothing outside of CQC. Both ACs have generally bad EN defense. There were overall 12 deaths here. The top 5 times were Locksmith at a 346, Open Faith at a 348, Reconfig at a 350, Still Haze at a 354, and Mind Beta at a 405. We can see a very obvious pattern of energy melee being very effective here. The worst 5 were Milktooth at a 948, Loader4 at a 1023, Howl at a 1050, Lee Long at a 1207, and UAU at a 1452. All of these ACs died in their attempts 1 to 3 times, excluding Howl, which I attribute to a personal skill issue at the time, supported by a really good 11th place, Deathless time. We can see 3 ACs with mediocre damage and 1 with consistency issues. While definitely worth mentioning the consistency issue, Milktooth did manage to place at 18th place Deathless, while the other Deathless ACs remained relatively towards the bottom. Inspection. This mission involves killing a bunch of fodder before fighting the Cataphract and dual Eckdroimoi. The Eckdroimoi are fast and have great bullet defense, while also having okay AP and a notable EN weakness. The Cataphract is a high AP but low stability heavyweight, immune to all attacks but from the front. The Eckdroimoi can be dealt well with any fast high stagger builds or EN weapon builds. The Cataphract necessitates high burst options. If you can't stagger the cat every time you get in front of it, it tends to get away, costing time and risking more damage. There were overall 4 deaths here. The top 5 presets were Umbrox at a 345, Still Haze at a 358, Archstick at a 409, Reconfig at a 411, and Nightfall at a 419. We can see a good mixture of some of the best impact generators, high energy damage, and high punish damage. The bottom 5 were RUBICONIAN at a 621, Burn PICKAXE at a 708, Lee Long at a 730, CIRCUS at a 842, and UAU at an 1104. Excluding Lee Long's assault armor, we can see a complete lack of energy damage, overall poor stagger options, and low stagger punish. Balteus. This mission involves fodder killing, followed by an AC fight, then followed by Balteus. Saul has some decent damage, but is overall no problem. High stagger damage works wonders. Balteus is a little more interesting. Builds with good sustain fire, assault armor or bubbles are great against a shield, high impact lets you re-stagger quickly, and high burst lets you finish the fight in about only 2 shields. It's worth noting no presets died in this mission. The top 5 were Still Haze at a 4 minutes, Umbrox at a 405, Locksmith at a 411, Archstick and Dual Nature at a 415. Here we can see high stagger, bubble, sustain fire, and great punish damage, the whole kit and caboodle. Bottom 5 were Still Haze ORTUS at a 546, Mind Beta at a 601, Burn PICKAXE at a 622, Full Course at a 624, and UAU at a 629. We have some interesting placements here. ORTUS struggles with fodder and has a really low sustained fire. Mind Beta has also similar problems, having to choose between dealing damage with the Kurosawa or staggering with it, while also having bad shield damage. And Full Course is extremely easy for the fight, but it still remains quite slow. Grid 086. This mission features 2 AC fights, 3 tetrapods, and a boss. Most enemies have generally low EN defense and no defensive OS tuning and no repairs, which makes them very vulnerable to stagger punish. The tetrapods fall to good burst or high output, and the cleaner needs a good combination of burst, stagger, and good punish to get rid of it easy, especially EN punishment. There was only 1 death in this mission, CIRCUS. The top 5 presets were Umbrox at a 543, Nightfall at a 602, Still Haze Incorporation at a 605, and Locksmith at a 606. We can see a lot of high EN damage, some great impact, and high punish damage. Bottom 5 were Deep Down at an 819, Tester at an 820, Burn PICKAXE at an 844, Loader4 at a 904, and CIRCUS at a 1024. We can see a funny trend of how useless vertical missiles are here. The fights are indoors, so they mostly hit the roof, significantly worsening CIRCUS's and Deep Down's output. Tester and Loader4 struggle to stagger, and Burn PICKAXE just has low output. Funnily enough, UAU is not last here because the iridiums are a little harder to dodge in closed areas, and the cleaner gets staggered by 2 grenades. It's still the 7th worst time though, don't get that wrong. Sea Spider. This mission is just a bunch of waiting and then a boss fight. The Sea Spider has a stupid amount of AP and stability, but as long as you don't fire cannons as it jumps, you'll probably never miss the large target. The Spider has a resistance to EN weapons and explosive weapons, and a slight weakness to kinetic. Additionally, having assault armor speeds up the mission by facilitating a quick kill against the drones before the Spider, and allowing you to purge all weapons for the movement section. No AC died to the Sea Spider. I specify the Sea Spider because there were 2 deaths in this mission. To the bridge lasers, which ruined Guidance's otherwise deathless run. Entangle Spiders goes from 25th to 11th, and Guidance's goes from 36th to 14th. The top 5 were Nightfall at a 346, Corporation, Locksmith, and Mind Alpha at a 353, and Howl at a 356. Nightfall position makes sense, bunk is bunk. Mind Alpha does use kinetic damage punish, and Howl can never miss against a target this large. But I find Locksmith and Corporation a little surprising. It looks like the constant output of drones and the spammable laser blade gave an advantage. The bottom 5 were CIRCUS at a 449, Tester at a 501, Burn Pickers at a 521, Lee Long at a 546, and UAU at a 602. We can see a universally low damage output here, as well as no strong kinetic sources either. Eckdroimoi. This mission involves a brief movement section followed by 2v1 against the Eckdroimoi. As mentioned previously, the Eckdroimoi have middling AP, low stability, low EN defense with good kinetic defense. EN weapons and high burst do very well. There was only 1 death here, Arshtik. The top 5 were Mind Beta at a 301, Candle Ring at a 312, Infection at a 314, Locksmith at a 315, and Nightfall, Corporation, and Still Haze tied at 316. Mind Beta makes an appearance, so hopefully nobody's surprised. We've got 2 very high EN burst damage options, and it can literally one-cycle an Eckdroimoi. Infection is similar, majorly taking advantage of the low EN defense. Counter Ring was a surprise, but the ease of stagger with the Songbirds makes sense. Corporation and the 2 Stagger Punch Kings expectedly show up as well. The bottom 5 were Hermit at a 4-minute, Burn PICKAXE and ASTER at a 404, CANNONHEAD at a 408, and Arshtik at a 414. Crazy lineup. CANNONHEAD had a shitty time because the large movement portion at the start really hampered the time. I mean, hell, Umbrox literally one-cycled an Eckdroimoi, but came in 26 for the mediocre speed in the section. ASTER had poor mobility and its bad defenses exploited with a lot of wall stagger extensions, and Hermit had low damage, and Arshtik had its reliance on stagger with the blade exploited, but I truly believe Arshtik probably could have done a lot better with a better executed attempt. HCLC. This mission involves destroying an HC and 2 LCs. They are surrounded by fodder. This mission favors heavy burst and stagger punish. The HC can be killed very quickly with the right build. There are only 2 deaths here, Steel Haze and Echo. The top 5 were... Am I reading that correct? Mad Stomp at a 210. Mad Stomp with a 210. Nightfall with a 212, Locksmith at a 213, Umbrox at a 216, and Dual Nature with a 217. It does make sense, we've got 5 ACs with really good punish damage. The bottom 5 were Burn Pickers at a 251, UAU at a 258, Tester at a 301, Steel Haze at a 354, and Echo at a 417. Steel Haze did worse than UAU, Rubicon has fallen. Jokes aside, the last 2 were purely the death. Steel Haze a respectable 23rd, Deathless, and Echo literally tied with Rummy for the Deathless time. So I think I'll mention the 6th and 7th last places. We've got Milktooth and Institute. Milktooth actually had a really good HC kill, but lost major time to its poor mobility. Institute just has really bad damage, bro. Of course, the obligatory Scrub Squad picks. Helicopter. This mission involves a movement section followed by 3 ghost kills and then a fight against the PCA helicopter and 4 light LCs. This map is interesting. The helicopter is a very large stagger window, so any ACs with great stagger punch can go to town. The helicopter also favors ACs with good aerial mobility, as poor mobility can make hitting the helicopter really difficult. High explosive damage is also beneficial here for killing the ghost quickly. This map had 3 deaths, CIRCUS, TSUBASA, and Institute. The top 5 were Mind Alpha at a 333, Milktooth at a 338, Umbrox and Candle Ring at 340, and Locksmith at 343. We consider Javelin Alpha the best anti-ghost weapon in the game at first place. We've got 2 Mauler users and 2 ACs with high explosive cannons. The bottom 5 were Steel Haze ORTUS at a 514, Full Course at a 529, Mad Stomp at a 549, Institute at a 554, and CIRCUS at a 601. We can see a combination of ACs with poor mobility, poor range, and notable missile reliance. The helicopter's flares actually make missiles very ineffective in this mission and slows down the kill. CIRCUS's poor damage combined with that made it slow to kill even without the death. Institute was similar. ORTUS is a bit of a surprise, but considering its necessity of CQC and the helicopter's tendency to get pretty far away from you, it does make sense. Enforcement Squad. This mission is a grueling endurance mission. We've got an AC, a lot of fodder with high explosives, 2 LZs at once, more fodder, and then a very difficult HC fight. The map is also very large, meaning mobility also plays a role. The best options are ACs with fast kills or great mobility. Most enemies also have higher than average EN defense here. This map had 8 deaths: Burn, Pickaxe, Infection, Corporation, and Rubiconian, and then 4 to UAU. The top 5 were Guidance at a 347, Steel Haze at a 352, Locksmith at a 353, Aster Crown at a 355, and Bitter Promise at a 357. Guidance excels because of the extremely fast kills granted by the baton and good fodder killing from the earshot and forecell. Steel Haze and Locksmith go without saying. Aster Crown is surprising, but he managed to kill Freddy off a single stagger, which gave him a notable lead. Bitter Promise also has a good build for killing fodder. The bottom 5 were Rubiconian at a 7:59, Corporation at an 8:48, Infection at a 9-minute, Burn Pickaxe at a 10:59, and UAU at a 21:21. The ACs here have bad damage, or in Infection's case, a weakened weapon type with no ammo, and Corporation is also an AC that excels in dealing with a good target, but suffers against groups. And it being extremely lightweight bit it in the arse in this case. Cataphract. This mission only features a single boss to kill, the Cataphract. As a light heavyweight stagger type, they get staggered like an AC, but are very vulnerable to stagger extensions, which is important because it can be difficult for many ACs to hit it, because it's really an opportunity you get is when it's directly in front of you. No ACs died in this mission. The top 5 were Corporation at a 139, Archstick at a 143, Umbrox at a 145, and Locksmith and Milktooth died at a 146. Corporation's sustained fire really helped against a long stagger duration, Milktooth and Locksmith's reliable stagger punish with the Morley and melee weapons, the Ox is the Ox, and Archstick gets some good damage with the Napalm that it can't miss. The bottom 5 were Circus and Loader 4 at a 254, Mind Beta at a 257, Burn Pickers at a 312, and UAU at a 335. Circus suffers from the wheelchair's difficulty position around the Cataphract while also not having Candle Ring's stupid high burst stagger. Mind Beta definitely could have had a better time, but the reliance on full charge carousel when the Cataphract decides to move can be a problem. Loader 4 struggles to deal impact and has to sacrifice punish damage, and UAU and Burn Pickaxe face their expected low damage problems. Branch. This mission is a 2v1 AC fight that will escalate to a 3v1 if you're not fast enough. I do believe I've proven it's not a build check, but it definitely is a damage check. However, fast kills will significantly lower difficulty, and the ACs do have their weaknesses. Aster Crown's bulk is all in its shield. If he fires a Harris at you or your bait is AA with a melee, you can get him to drop the shield, making him significantly easier to kill. And because of his lower AP, he can usually kill off one stagger. Chartreuse is the biggest problem in this mission, I think. Caution must be employed to dodge your attacks. The lasers deal high damage and the explosives deal high impact. Some ACs don't have the energy to dodge every time, so you have to prioritize what you need to dodge. Defensively, Chartreuse is bulky, will usually survive a stagger punish even from the highest sources, but is very vulnerable to resags from high impact ACs, effectively stun locking her. Raven is honestly the easiest, just gotta be careful with your melees to avoid bunk counters, you gotta watch for his AA, and dodge the songbirds when he jumps up in the air, and honestly he can't do anything to you if you do that. Additionally, he also dies to the most basic of stagger punishes. There were 17 deaths on this map, 81 with UAU included. The top 5 were Mind Beta and Steel Haze at a 305, Dual Nature at a 308, Echo at a 312, and Umbrox at a 313. Mind Beta managed to lock in and land every single Dagger Kurosawa combo, instantly killing Raven and King. Steel Haze was similar, Dual Nature's Bubbles gave him a fast King kill, and Raven's poor EN defense further gave Bubble strength. Echo just becomes a lot stronger when against large targets that can just take every Coral Missile, and Umbrox is just oxing it. However, I cannot move on without mentioning some deathless times. Mad Stomp and Rubiconian both hit a 310 deathless. That is tied 4th. Excuse me. So, it turns out, Mad Stomp can simply kill Raven and King off a single stagger, and Chartreuse could probably be even faster if I used the Chainsaw as punish, because in my attempt, I was abusing the Chartreuse's garbage mobility and large hitbox to land the Chainsaw in neutral. But then, Rubiconian? Yeah, it turns out if you get lucky with the delivery boy, you can kill Raven with a single stagger with a combo with 16s and kicks. Crazy shit. Bottom 5 were Trainer at a 6:55, DEADSLED at a 7-minute, Deep Down at a 7:39, Burn Pickers at a 18:17, and UAU at a 2 hour, 55 minutes, and 59 seconds. Burn Pickaxe and UAU were the only presets to take more than one death. Burn took 4 and UAU took 64. Trainer was mostly a skill issue, but the low damage was definitely a notable problem. Same with Cold Call and Deep Down, who also suffer from damage problems. Burn and UA both really struggle here as the 2 lowest DPS ACs in the game. Chartreuse tends to come to King before you can even finish him off, and that makes the fight really difficult. I always separate from Chartreuse to kill Raven with these two, because Raven arriving while Chartreuse is alive is basically a death sentence. And while Burn can at least maintain a little bit of mobility, UAU is fucked if you fire at the wrong time. Tanking an earshot, a charged LRB, an LCA, a pile bunker, a songbird, or anything can just end your run. Death 2. This mission involves a lot of movement, an AC fight in a shit arena, and a boss fight. Cold Core was chosen for his greater difficulty. He did almost kill many in AC. His arena sucks ass though, so always fight him in the tunnel. A good FCS is crucial for landing shots against his RJ jumps. The Enforcer was relatively fine, you just gotta stay uber aggressive, aero if you can, and save an AA for the phase transitions to burst him down. There were 9 deaths here, 3 to low to 4 and 6 to UAU. The top 5 were still HAZE at a 4:42, Archstick at a 5 minute, Guidance at a 5:05, Echo at a 5:21, and Locksmith at a 5:22. Still HAZE's extremely fast mobility combined with his excellent stagger punish gave it a clear top spot. Archstick was able to utilize Napalm in the tunnel and against a grounded Enforcer, and Guidance easily abuses the Enforcer's stagger extensions against the baton. Echo can put against some work again against a large target, and Locksmith is just Locksmith. Though I could definitely see Locksmith's poor gen costing him a bit of time here. The bottom 5 was TSUBASA at a 7:12, Full Course at a 7:47, Burn PICKAXE at a 7:50, Low to 4 at a 11:27, and UAU at a 19:40. Full Course suffered a lot of time from losing its missile, mostly being useless in the Cold Core fight, colliding with the terrain, and it almost died. TSUBASA also suffered from low damage here, and we can see the usual suspects with similar reasons. Low to 4 and UAU weren't actually that slow deathless-wise, mostly middle road, but the difficulty and lack of consistency made their deaths always a significant possibility. Redguns, a mission where you have to face waves of fodder enemies, tetrapods, and an AC. This is, in my opinion, the only mission where MTs are threatening. The first waves are easy, you just gotta make sure the carrier helicopter doesn't drop and kill everything quickly, but when Michigan arrives, he comes with a shotgun shield MTs. Normally harmless, but they pose a threat with their number and their cooperation with Michigan. Michigan has very good stagger tools. The GATS is constant pressure, the tie-in must be avoided at all costs, and the Songbirds can catch you if you mess up. Throw in an MT shotgun backshot, and now suddenly you're taking a lot of AP loss. You get 2 options. Kill Michigan quickly or kill the shotgun MTs. Neither is that easy. Michigan has high stability and decent AP, and the shotgun MTs require a burst option from above to bypass the shield. If you take too long, the next wave will spawn, where you are probably cooked. Time loss is inevitable because you cannot take both Michigan and the tetrapod at the same time, which makes deaths very likely. Additionally, the MTs that wave come with grenade cannons, which can easily stagger you. There were 14 deaths here, 10 to UAU. The top 5 were Open Faith, Umbrox, and Corporation at 4:59, and Guidance and Entangle at a 5:02. These ACs all have good crowd control options while also maintaining good burst damage for Michigan. The 5 worst were Hermit at a 7:02, Howl at a 10:28, Mad Stomp at 11:59, Nightfall at a 15:05, and UAU at a 48.33. Nightfall being second last seems crazy to you, realize that Michigan seems engineered to screw him over. You can't land a bunk if you get staggered first. Crazy enough, the deaths weren't really the problem for Nightfall. It was still second deathless, likely because it sucks ass at killing shield MTs. Rummy suffers from no crowd options, Hermit is just low damage, and Howl suffers from 1v1 lacking crowd options, though it was mostly his death. Howl deathless had a decent 19th place, and of course UAU suffers from dogshit damage. Vespars. This mission is a simple 2v2 AC fight. Hawkins and Pater are both poor stagger but exceptional punish damage. The chance of death here is surprisingly high, especially if you try to lower the time by trying to keep him inside the room. A very high risk, high reward strategy. Flatwell here ranges from slightly helpful to an active hindrance, so he is an unfortunate random factor. Defensively, Pater is mobile but very frail, and Hawkins is slow but has good AP and great stability. Consistency or high damage here can abuse their starting positions. There are 11 deaths here. The top 5 were Howl at a 2:03, Archstick at a 2:04, Umbrox at a 2:09, and Candlering and Locksmith at a 2:17. Howl gets a great start by full charge noodling past the door, Archstick can maximize the napalm in the room, Candlering Songbirds are very difficult to dodge in the room, and Ox and Locksmith are expected. Now, I would also mention the 6th place preset, Nightfall at a 2:18. This is a really good time, only just missing the top 5. One small problem, Nightfall died. Nightfall died and then proceeded to hit a 6th place. Deathless, Nightfall has a time of 1:36. Smoking Howl by almost 30 seconds. Nutty shit. The bottom 5 were Trainer at a 4:36, Bitter Promise and UAU at a 5:13, Tester at 5:30, and Mad Stomp at a 6:12. Trainer was a bit of bad play, Bitter Promise was similar, and we got more Scrub Squad. Rusty and Flatwell. This mission is a movement portion that follows a 2v1 against 2 ACs, one being low health. Rusty and Flatwell both have lightweight AC, so consistent options are of great benefit. Additionally, Flatwell flies into the arena very predictably, so a strong burst option could kill him instantly. There were 7 deaths here, 3 to burn pickaxe. The top 5 were Nightfall at a 2:09, Umbrox and Mad Stomp at a 2:15, Locksmith at a 2:16, and Still HAZE at a 2:18. So yeah, we've got a bunch of ACs that can kill off a single stagger. Umbrox probably could have done a little bit better, but Rusty could at least dodge a little. Fucking Flatwell just fucking died, Lamau. The bottom 5 were Barren Flower at a 341, Echo at a 357, RUBICONIAN at a 413, Loader4 at a 421, and Burn PICKAXE at a 929. Barren Flower, RUBICONIAN, and Burn PICKAXE suffer from their poor damage, while Loader4 and Echo have consistency issues against faster ACs. Cel240 IBIS. This mission involves a 2v1 AC fight, a little bit of fodder clearing, and then a boss fight. Melee and Wu-How High are fairly easy, especially considering they have a large damage vulnerability in this fight. Most of these can just straight up one-shot Melee, and Wu-How High is a shit AC, so he will die quickly too. And then after a movement section, you face the Cel240 IBIS, a very mobile boss with great burst. There were quite a few deaths here with repair kits remaining. You have two options to take out the IBIS. You can burst it down with constant impact that it can't dodge all of, or you can wait to a perfect opportunity and release burst. The IBIS is also resistant to EN weapons and weak to explosives. There were 12 deaths here, 4 of which were UAU. The top 5 here were Nightfall at a 427, Locksmith at a 430, Umbrox at a 434, SteelHaze at a 438, and Guidance at a 449. Nightfall has the strongest kinetic punish, so that makes sense. Locksmith and Umbrox have high explosives, SteelHaze handles the movement portions quickly. Surprisingly, I found Guidance's IBIS to be a little mostly from an execution standpoint. So as fast AC and fodder kills must have come in handy. The bottom 5 were CIRCUS at an 828, Barren Flower at an 849, Tessa at a 933, Institute at a 555, and UAU at a 2350. CIRCUS and Barren Flower struggle to land hits against the IBIS, Institute struggles from 4 EN weapons, and Tessa and UAU both struggle to land hits and have poor damage. Freud. A movement mission with a few LCs followed by an AC fight. The LCs are fine as long as you dodge the attacks, and Freud is mostly no problem usually. The AI is not smart enough, in my opinion, Lamau. Fun fact, if Freud staggers you mid-air, hands off the controls and you'll just drop to the ground before the laser blade can hit you. This mission had 2 deaths, one to Nile and one to UAU. Both deaths had many repair kits remaining. The top 5 were SteelHaze at a 418, Dual Nature at a 420, Candle Ring at a 427, Reconfig at a 431, and SteelHaze ORTUS at a 435. We can see fast ACs with great damage. ORTUS is interesting, but thinking about it, this mission is basically a bunch of 1v1, so not too unsurprising. Reconfig also got some mileage out of the LCs sucking at dodging laser blades. The bottom 5 were Full Course at a 611, Tester at a 635, Burn PICKAXE at a 650, Deep Down at a 720, and UAU at a 744. Full Course and Deep Down tend to suffer a bit because the missiles can be inconsistent, and Freud can dodge a little bit as well. We've also got the usual Scrub Squad members here as well. Ayre. This mission is just a boss fight. The difficulty of Ayre's fight can be greatly reduced with the right build. Consistent output can break the shield and restagger, and burst damage can mean only 1 or 2 shields. This mission also favors mobility, as a single hit taken during the second phase can snowball to much more damage. There were 13 deaths to Ayre. The top 5 were SteelHaze at a 208, Nightfall at a 209, Corporation at a 214, Umbrox at a 220, and Archdick at a 221. We can see the usual high outputs to high stagger suspects, and Corporation abusing Ayre's massive hitbox and Umbrox's reliable staggers. Bottom 5 were Lee Long at a 558, Loader4 at a 644, ASTER at a 712, Burn PICKAXE at a 848, and UAU at a 3825. Lee Long suffers from bad damage and poor mobility. ASTER probably could have been faster, but the poor mobility surge didn't help. Loader4 and Burn suffering to deal stagger and damage, and UAU suffers immensely. UAU needs to follow a strict pattern of shield break, to kick, to wait, to stagger with iridiums, to kick, to iridium. This combo deals just enough damage to stagger Ayre to get to the second phase in 3 cycles. You get 1 extra cycle of leeway before you start facing a large possibility of having to do a lot of punching at the end of this fight. It's only this short because of Ratu is mapping it out. And actually, there's one thing I want to check. You hear me moving away from my microphone right now. Got the AC6 official guidebook. And if I'm not mistaken, let me get to Ayre's fight page. Yeah, so you know the common theory that Ayre actually has bad explosive defense? Yeah, no, that's a complete falsehood. Ayre's explosive defense is 1,326. That's a 32.6% damage reduction. Like, it's better than her EN defense. Like, I'm actually looking at it. It's crazy. It's like, the energy defense is only 1,090, so that's only a 9% damage reduction, and the kinetic defense is a 1,280, so a 28% damage reduction. So yeah, no, explosives suck against Ayre. Fun fact. Blown your mind. Snail and Chatty Carla. This mission involves killing 3 ACs, a 1v1 and a 2v1, with no repair kits. The targets here are mostly heavyweights, so a lot of deaths happen because the priestess just don't have the resources to take out all 3 ACs. Because of this, I definitely think this is one of the best mission tests. This mission had 18 deaths. The top 5 were SteelHaze at a 442, Locksmith at a 443, Mind Alpha at a 447, Archdick at a 450, and Echo at a 454. The melee weapons as a focus gave extra strength in this mission. Being independent of ammo count and having high punish helps to chip away at the large health balls. The bottom 5 were Trainer at an 835, Burn Pickers at an 854, Lee Long at a 939, Circus at a 1022, and Rubiconian at a 1218. We can see a consistent pattern of low damage options and limited ammo. Rubiconian though was mostly skill issue against Snail. Snailteus. This mission involves quite a bit of movement and then includes 2 boss fights, one against the Cleaner and another against Arquebus Balteus, aka Snailteus. Snailteus is a very difficult boss, arguably the second hardest, and might be the hardest for a few. Snailteus keeps a shield up at almost all times, meaning that a build either needs constant sustain or bubbles to break it, really high bubbles to re-stagger before you can put it up again, or really high stagger punish to shorten the amount of times you need to break the shield. Additionally, Snailteus hits like a truck. ACs with poor mobility face significant risk of dying regardless of AP. There were 78 deaths here, 44 to UAU. The top 5 were Nightfall at a 536, Corporation at a 450, Entangle at a 555, Shinobi at a 559, and Trainer at a 6 minute. Nightfall has constant output, high burst, and excellent punish. It's literally the perfect AC for this mission. Corporation had very good output and punish and dealt with the Cleaner quickly. Shinobi can hit restag as well, and the Trainer just has really good impact. The bottom 5 were Burn Pickaxe at a 1608, Tester at a 17 minute, Loader 4 at a 2252, Institute at a 3656, and UAU at 3 hours, 16 minutes, and 40 minutes. Burn Pickaxe has very low damage. Tester and Loader 4 have mid damage and struggle to break the shield. Institute struggles to break the shield, has limited ammo, and is attacking Snailteus' highest defense. And UAU, well, let's just say one mistake with that yee-ass grenade firing stance can result in a death sometimes. Oh, and let me also look at the drive block again for Snailteus' defenses. Yeah, here's another thing I also learnt recently. Arquebus Balteus has an explosive defense of 1,616. That is a 61% damage reduction to explosive weapons. 61! It's higher than its energy defense of 52.9% reduction. That's actually ridiculous. Volta. Just a simple kill boss mission. Volta's not terribly difficult, his low stability makes him vulnerable to staggers, but his ridiculous stagger punish in combination with the noodle glitch can make deaths happen sometimes. So Volta must be respected. There were 9 deaths here. The top 5 were Milktooth at a 153, Madstomp at a 212, Umbrox at a 215, Aster Crown at a 217, and Shinobi at a 218. The chainsaw is showing some real weight here. Aster Crown's high stability coming in very helpful to let him hit those LCAs, and the low kinetic defense helps Shinobi's kinetic kit go to work. The bottom 5 were Howl at a 336, Bitter Promise and Loader 4 at a 413, UAU at a 416, and Mind Beta at a 720. Howl was mostly skill issue, it had good deathless time. Bitter Promise needs to say CQC with only all-right stagger, which led to Volta returning with staggers of his own. Same with Loader 4. And UAU is UAU. Mind Beta was mostly a skill issue, but the all-or-nothing gimmick of the build led to getting punished very often on hits, resulting in the deaths. Alt Cold Convergence. What if they made Snail and Chatty Carla harder? Instead of 3 ACs, it's 4 ACs. Jokes aside, this mission is very difficult for many. Killing Snail before Iguazu is near impossible for most of the presets, so you always have the 2v1. And the cramped area combined with Iguazu's optimized mech and better AI makes this fight very difficult. There were 47 deaths here. The top 5 were Umbrox at a 344, Locksmith at a 409, Mind Beta at a 422, Open Faith at a 426, and Guidance at a 427. We can definitely see a shift to the heavy ACs to aid in consistency, while also having very good damage options. The bottom 5 were UAU at a 1022, Circus at a 1032, Tester at a 1411, Loader 4 at an 1802, and Burn Pickaxe at a 1947. The enclosed spaces with no cover really did not help these ACs with their consistency and damage issues, notably from CIRCUS. Allmind, the final boss. A 3-phase fight. First destroy an AC, then the 2-phase boss. Second phase is where Allmind uses a combination of lasers and swipes to attack you, while air assists. And the third phase is just you and Iguazu, where he goes crazy on the melee. This mission is the hardest in the game in my opinion, hands down. First phase prioritizes a high stagger punish kill to end it quickly. Good mobility is also needed to dodge the Kurosawa. AoE on attacks can also help kill the additional ACs. Second phase is mostly fine, but you want to stay airy to avoid the sea spiders. Fuck ass plasma shots, which can quickly kill you. The final phase is the real meat and potatoes. Allmind is fast, does crazy damage, and micro staggers on most hits, making any mistakes very costly. 2 options here are best. Either consistent stagger or high burst stagger. Allmind stays staggers for a while, so you can usually get a reload explosive quick enough to get them ready to stagger again, and having bad impact is very killer in this fight. But aerial mobility is the best way to dodge, so that gives you a nice advantage as well. As expected, this mission had the most deaths, 142. Mostly from Loader 4, Burn Pickaxe, and Infection, and this was also not including UAU's deaths. The best 5 were Umbrox at a 2 minute, Guidance at a 212, Locksmith at a 218, Cannonhead at a 224, and Arstic at a 243. All 5 presets here have good burst stagger options. Gauntlet is also very good at cycling Allmind with a stun baton, dealing some crazy damage. Allmind's massive hitbox and likeliness to get close to you also worked very well in CANNONHEAD's favour, which usually struggles with enemies being just out of range. The bottom 5 were Burn Pickaxe at a 33.48, RUBICONIAN at a 33.51, Infection at a 44.59, Loader 4 at a 76.40, and UAU with the only failed mission among all the presets. But to give you an idea, Ratu is the only person to beat Allmind with UAU, and his attempt was 10 minutes, and he gave a conservative estimate of 12 hours to beat. I could start a game on my new save file, play through to the final mission, get all S ranks, beat all the arena things, get all the log hunt and data logs, and I'd still easily clear this conservative estimate for how long it takes to beat Allmind with UAU. Especially considering it could easily be as long as 20 hours for his more liberal estimate. This alone would increase the time I spent doing the preset Gauntlet by approximately 10 to 20%. Look, I may do UAU against Allmind in the future. However, I really hope this is illustrating how bad it is. Shrimply, having that grenade firing stance in the final phase is killer. Getting to the point is slow, you'll likely end up punching Allmind, which is also difficult, and even after doing all that, it's still ridiculously easy to mess up. And you know what, I'll also look at the book because I'm also fairly certain when I saw Allmind's defensive performance. Not as crazy as Snailteus, but like 37% damage reduction to explosives, 37%. Allmind's highest defense count, 37% reduction. Ratu said the attempt was harder than rocket science, and he studies astrophysics. As for the others, Loader 4 can get a fast phase 1 after perfect attempts, but is inconsistent and needs to take the attempt slow because he needs all the ammo for phase 3. We genuinely have to try stagger with the Turner and 4 cell on God. Infection just has no impact, so we are entirely relying on the Fazan. Free end weapons against this high end defense boss also really sucks. RUBICONIAN had really bad damage and inconsistent output, but honestly I think it might have been a bit of a skill issue, as it was definitely possible to be faster with how close I got every attempt. Index is similar to Loader 4, but the phase 1 is just worse and the phase 3 is better. With that, what you've all been waiting for, the tier list itself. Let's start with the bottom of the barrel, the F tier. UAU, the only F tier among the presets. There are so many reasons why UAU we considered the worst preset. Gen 1 FCS, Kikaku booster with no melee, full bar show, mediocre stability and low EN defense, the shield is arguably the worst among them, and is dual wielding the weapon with the lowest ammo count in the game. But fundamentally, UAU is the worst preset for a simple reason. It is the only preset that has to choose between attacking and dodging. There are many bipedal and vertical ACs of firing stance weapons, yet every one of them had another hand weapon or a back weapon to use while moving. Additionally, UAU is grenade firing stance, meaning there is a whole second of lag before and after firing. This window legitimately allows enemies to react to you. So many a time have I been attacked while Snailteus, while he isn't doing anything, to then he pulls out a laser as I start firing. This fact makes Ayre's fight annoying to require a specific strategy. Snailteus is a grueling 8-minute fight of perfect play, and Allmind is a 10-minute gauntlet of perfect movement and impeccable dodging. I think it speaks for itself that only a single person has beaten Allmind with UAU. And as I said before, they gave a conservative estimate of 12 hours attempts, but a liberal estimate of 20 hours. These facts speak for themselves. UAU died 169 times, and that is excluding an Allmind attempt. UAU's best performances were a 23rd place at Rusty and Flatwell, a 30th at Eckdroimoi, a 36th at Grid086, a 37th at Helicopter, and a 37th at Snail and Chatty Carla. I would like to remind you, those last few ones are literally bottom 5. UAU's worst performance was dead last in 14 missions. But like, okay, let's imagine for a second, we go for the deathless missions instead. 12 missions. UAU at its peak performance is still worse for half of the missions. Same position as the last tier list. E tier. Okay, so we've also got more scrub squads, but at least these ones are a lot better against the bosses. Burn Pickaxe. Burn Pickaxe has quite a few problems. The mobility is poor with Kikaku Booster and Joso Gen, the accuracy is inconsistent with the Gen 1 FCS, and the weapons kinda suck too. The Exogen is fine, but it's kind of low damage. The Little Gem also doesn't feel like it has enough stagger, so oftentimes it'll shoot it and it'll still just have a little bit of stagger bar remaining. And the 4-cell vertical basically never does anything. The combination of low damage and poor mobility causes Burn Pickaxe to be very slow and prone to accidental deaths. I'll give it a little credit, it does have decent impact building, but it doesn't mean much when the punch damage is so low. Burn Pickaxe died 38 times. Burn Pickaxe's best 5 missions were a 31st at Redguns, a 32nd at Iggy and Volt, a 32nd at Helicopter, a 34th at IBIS, and a 36th at Vespars. Burn Pickaxe's worst performances were 31st at Enforcement, in Cataphract, Branch, and Ayre, and last at Rusty, Flatwell, and Alt Coral. Same position as last list. Loader 4, the most glazed preset on God. Loader 4 is not good. The frame is mediocre with low EN defense, stability is mid, and mobility is bad with P10 booster and Jozo Gen. The thing is, this AC is just effectively the Pulse Blade. And the blade is excellent. It single-handedly saves Loader 4. It can let Loader 4 kill lightweights off a single stagger, which is a good niche, but the AC still sucks. The Turner sucks balls, and while I will glaze the 4 cells as the best lightweight missiles, duos can suck my nuts, they are far too inconsistent as an impact gen option by themselves. This AC is mostly landing a charged Pulse Blade, then trying to stagger with kicks, to then punish with the blade again. This strat, however, faces challenges against bosses, and especially Allmind, in which trying to melee can easily get you killed. It's cool and neat mostly, but it's still garbage. Despite the worst Allmind, I placed Loader 4 over Burn Pickaxe because I think being far faster throughout the whole game is worth more than Burn's admittedly lucky Allmind. Loader 4 died 57 times. Loader 4's best times with a 27th at Sea Spider, a 29th at Vespars, 29th at IBIS, 31st at HCLC, and a 32nd at the Redguns. Loader 4's worst time were 5 different 41st at Grid 086, Def 2, Rusty Flatwell, Alt Coal, and Allmind. One position lower than the last list. D rank. Okay, so we've left the Scrub Squad territory, but we still have ACs with overall poor missions in general, usually having at least one suffer mission. Institute. The Ocellus nerf gutted this preset. The Auroras effectively had their reload doubled, greatly reducing the AC's DPS. The Moonlight is sadly not as strong as I wish it was, and the Nebula, while good, it suffers from ammo issues. This AC also greatly suffers against shields. Funnily, this AC is on gills and a autogen, which means you can burn through your quick boost quickly and become a sitting duck if you're not careful. And when, not if, when you run out of Nebula ammo, the gills shit melee speed also makes punching difficult. 4 EN weapons can also seriously hamper you against EN resistant enemies, like Arquebus Balteus. Sagas can also be inconsistent because they mostly rely on the auras. Institute died 15 times. Institute's best missions were a 7th at Depth 2, a 14th at Rusty Flatwell, 18th at Grid 086 and Sea Spider, and a 20th at the Cataphract. Institute's worst missions were a 36th at HCLC and Freud, and a 41st at Helicopter IBIS and Snailteus. Institute placed 7 places lower than the last list. Rubiconian. There are the bones of a neat build here. Institute and the Therapist to kite, then 16 for some punish. Delivery Boy to launch some steel chairs. Gridwalker with Yarba for near perfect kiting. The problems arise from the dog shit ass frame. Like, get Allmind out of the kitchen. Bash your head on an RJ should be a crime. Femeza actively makes the Yarba gen way worse. Wrecker Arms further compound the Gen 1 FCS's weakness, making the Exogens in 16 very inconsistent, and the Delivery Boy takes a goddamn year to lock on. It's like the fucking Australia post, bro. If optimized a little better, I wouldn't say it'd be good, but it'd be a hell of a lot better. This preset can also have some crazy moments if the stars align. Like, if a kick stagger coincides with an oncoming Delivery Boy, you can stagger extend with the 16 and follow with a kick. This combination will deal incredible damage. Unfortunately though, it's very rare and difficult to do on purpose. Rubiconian died 21 times. Rubiconian's top missions were 12th at Eckdroimoi, 15th at Balteus and Alt Coral, 17th at Helicopter and Cataphract. Rubiconian's worst missions were 38th at Inspection and Enforcement, 39th at Allmind, 40th at Rusty Flatwell, and last at Snail and Chatty Carla. Rubiconian placed 13 places lower than the last list. Like, TBH, what the fuck was I smoking with that ritual placement, bro? Tester. What if we made Loader 4 better? But only slightly. So, Loader 4 went to the gym and this is the result. Slower, higher AP and stability, arguably better mobility with a 1-5 booster on Ling Tai, and slightly lower melee damage. But in exchange, Tester gets something massive. Act 2 missiles. This gives the AC a reliable way to hit staggers for melee punish, even if the melee damage is slightly less. This alone does so much for the AC. It's still very inconsistent in the Ling Tai, and the poor melee speed can fuck you over, but it is definitely better than Loader 4. And unlike the previous two, Tessa had no atrocious time sinks. Tessa died 14 times. Tessa's best missions were 13th at Branch, 14th at Iggy and Volt, 20th at the Cataphract, 23rd at Inspection, and 24th at Snail and Chatty Carla. Tessa's worst missions were 4 separate 39th places, a 40th at HCLC, IBIS and Alt Coral, and a 41st at the Vespars. Tessa's position is unchanged. Lilong. Missiles are just inconsistent as a main damage source, and the Ludlow is mid on its own. Lilong is safe from being even worse because of its assault armor, at least giving it some very good stagger punish, but the low damage is just really killer on this AC. Lilong died 11 times. Lilong's best missions were 10th at Snailteus, 21st at Redguns, 22nd at HCLC and Vespars, and 26th at Redguns. Lilong's worst missions were 38th at Ayre, 40th at Inspection and Snail plus Chatty Carla, and 41st at Iggy and Volt and Sea Spider. Lilong went up 2 places from the previous tier list. C tier, we finally come to like the decent-ish presets. They usually aren't that excellent, but they usually aren't as atrocious as the previous ones. Circus. Circus is a very poor combination of being inconsistent with low damage, with decent impact. If every steel chair from the delivery boy lands and verts always hit while the enemy is staggered, Circus can deal some decent damage, but that is a pretty big if. Moreover, the Little Gem and Iridium are both fairly low damage options, and are both sometimes prone to misses because of the missile focus AC. The frame is actually pretty decent, and Okushi does synergize decently well with the Wrecker Core. However, the poor damage is difficult to overlook. Circus died 12 times. Circus's best mission was Ayre at 18th, Iggy and Volta at 21st, Redguns and Volta at 23rd, and Branch at 24th. Circus's worst missions were Alt Coral at 39th, Inspection and Snail, Chatty, Carla at 41st, and Grid 086 and Helicopter at 42nd, aka last. Chatty fell 1 position from the last tier list. Barren Flower. Slow, frail, and mediocre weapons, need I say more. Bit of problems is DPS is fine-ish okay. Its impact is, again, fine-ish okay, but because the Snail arms massively reduce the speed and quick boost time, and the Narc Core seriously hits AP and stability, this AC can seriously struggle to stay alive. One of the weapons being the container missile also really does not help anything. And why the fuck does the 3rd ranked Vesper run a Gen 1 FCS? Which further compounds the damage problem by adding consistency issues like, are you stupid? Is he stupid? Barren Flower died 10 times. Barren Flower's best missions were 7th at Snailteus, 12th at Balteus, 14th at Helicopter, 18th at Inspection, and 23rd at Snail plus Chatty Carla. Barren Flower's worst missions were 35th at Volta, 36th at Iggy and Volt, 37th at Branch, 38th at Rusty Flatwell, and 39th at IBIS. Barren Flower's position fell 3 places from the last list. Deep Down. Missiles are pretty slow, huh? Deep Down massively relies on its missiles, and when the verts don't work half the time and the act missiles are slow on purpose, it can sometimes feel like this AC is nothing but the Harris. Deep Down does have some excellent defense, but the mobility is pretty mediocre. Low supply recovery and PO4 booster makes dodging a challenge at times. We have entered the AC tier where ACs aren't bad anymore, but yeah, Deep Down's just alright. Deep Down died 5 times. Deep Down's best missions were 9th at Ayre, 10th at Allmind, 19th at Balteus, 20th at HCLC, and 21st at the Redguns. Deep Down's worst missions were 36th at Inspection, 37th at Rusty Flatwell, 38th at Grid 086, 40th at Branch, and 41st at Freud. Deep Down fell 13 whole places, wholly overglaze. Mad Stomp. He's fucking invincible! Okay, there is a very good reason for Rummy beating out so many other presets, and honestly, I think this position might be a low ball. Rummy has a decent frame, a bad gen in FCS, a decent booster, and only 2 weapons, a Sweet 16 and the Chainsaw. Good for Rummy, this might fundamentally be the strongest possible weapon combination in AC6. Unfortunately, the 16s is very short range, and the Chainsaw damage is nerfed heavily from the arms. But Rummy will simply just clutch, and clutch he did. Mad Stomp hit a gold split. Mad Stomp hit a gold split. Mad Stomp hit a gold split, came 2nd against Volta, and 3rd against Rusty Flatwell. Mad Stomp, the funny haha shit AC, has some solid potential to hit the fastest splits in quite a few missions. This is crazy. Additionally, if we look at the deathless times, we can see that deathless Rummy at Branch could have hit a 4th place if you get the right RNG, and Rummy could hit a top 10 Allmind. Rummy is unironically good in some cases. Unfortunately, Rummy can definitely be inconsistent and definitely has a few weak missions. So I think the top of C is good, but I could definitely see Rummy going higher. I believe in the Chainsaw's potential. Mad Stomp died 7 times. Mad Stomp's best missions were 1st at HCLC, 2nd at Volta, 3rd at Rusty Flatwell, 9th at Enforcement, and 13th at Iggy and Volt. Mad Stomp's worst missions were 36th at Balteus and Snailteus, 37th at Grid 086, 40th at Helicopter and Redguns, and last at the Vespars. Mad Stomp rose 5 places from the last tier list. B tier. Okay, we're finally hitting some ACs that you have like a strength of their own. We've got like either maybe hit a gold split, maybe has a few good missions, maybe is ridiculously tanky. But yeah, we're finally hitting some decent, good ACs. Infection. Infection is a very high damage, low impact build. This gives Infection very polarizing matchups. It's excellent in some missions and it's hot garbage in others. Build-wise, it's a little low on AP, but VA20C on Alula Boost is actually pretty good. FCS is a little unoptimized for the range, but it's nothing crazy. The problems with this build arise mostly in these bad matchups, notably Allmind, where it takes low damage from bubbles and usually ends up consuming all the ammo, and the lack of impact is killer. But I think the bad missions will speak for themselves. Infection died 25 times, 19 to Allmind. Infection's best missions were 3rd at the Eckdroimoi, 7th at Balteus, 10th at Def 2, and 11th at Vespars and Rusty Flatwell. Infection's worst missions were 34th at Iggy and Volt, 35th at Ayre, 36th at Redguns, and 40th at Enforcement Squad and Allmind. Infection rose 5 places from the last tier list. Full course. I'ma keep it real. Full course disappointed me. I had a positive impression from watching the missile hell depend on the bosses to hit an instant stagger, and it was so cool. Yet when I actually timed it, holy, this preset is so slow. It's just the unfortunate reality that missiles are inconsistent as the main damage source. This preset though is very hard to kill. The larger AP pool and high stability as well as the keep away fighting style makes the deaths rare. Full course only had 1 death at Snail and Chatty Carla. Full course's best missions were 9th at Volta, 13th at Coral, 15th at the Cataphract, 17th at Allmind, and 18th at Snailteus. Full course's worst missions were 35th at the Redguns, a 38th at Freud, 39th at Helicopter and Def 2, and a 31st at Balteus. Full course fell 9 places from the last tier list. Mind Gamma. Unfortunately, this build just isn't that great. The idea is a Ludlow Kurosawa kite, but the build has some notable flaws. The Kurosawa's downtime is way too high to be used for kiting, feeling like it takes a year to cool down even if it doesn't overheat. The Kurosawa uncharge is generally inconsistent because of its slow projectile, and the Ludlow tends to run out of ammo. Additionally, the Kurosawa will also run out of ammo if you're using the charge shots. And lastly, the shield is on the Ludlow side, meaning you cannot fire the Ludlow while the shield is up. The shield sometimes necessitates completely cutting off all your damage to use. Frame-wise, it's decent, the Mind Alpha core is solid, but I think the fact this build appears before Headbringer speaks for itself. Mind Gamma died 3 times. Mind Gamma's best missions were 10th at HCLC, 11th at Helicopter, 13th at Grid 086, 14th at Cataphract and Allmind. Mind Gamma's worst missions were a 4-way 31st split, 32nd at Cel240, 36th at Volta and Coral, and 37th at Iggy and Volt. Mind Gamma fell 11 places from the last tier list. Steel HAZE ORTUS. Why the fuck Rusty abandoned his goated AC for this piece of scrap is beyond me. I'm being facetious, but the point still stands. This is a complete downgrade to Steel HAZE. The problem mostly comes from its inferior mobility and stagger build-up being more inconsistent. Steel HAZE staggers from a rifle and a pistol, while ORTUS staggers from a pistol and a bullet orbit, with the occasional Triano shot. These methods can be better for burst, but has overall way less consistency, often creating a large set of downtime after the burst, especially with the orbit, which wants to be up for both dealing impact and for the stagger punish. Yet the short duration and slow cooldown makes this way harder. Punish damage is also notably worse. With the Huxley up, I think it matches, but without, the Albararm's inferior melee spec is seriously killer. This preset also misses the biggest boon of Steel HAZE. The AA to finish the punish combo adds so much damage and allows so many quick kills. Pure Booster and Albacore also grants way less mobility than Alula and Narkcore, especially with the longer Hokushi red line. This AC is also really bad at killing fodder as well, which is pretty funny to be honest. Steel HAZE ORTUS died 4 times. ORTUS' best missions were 5th at Freud, 6th at Branch, 13th at Eckdroimoi and Volta, and 14th at the IBIS. ORTUS' worst missions were 37th at Inspection, Sea Spider and Redguns, and 38th at Balteus and Helicopter. ORTUS fell 16 places, a massive initial overglaze. Cannonhead. The biggest problem with Cannonhead is that the tank defense is way overkill most missions and a death sentence on a few, where the garbage mobility is genuinely killer, just like Snailteus. Unlike many other heavyweights here with sacrifice mobility, they get enough defense to be mostly unkillable while also being able to dodge large dangerous attacks that Cannonhead may have trouble with. As for the weapons, when's the last time you ever seen a tank in PvP with Zims? Like, never, right? Zims greatly benefit from good mobility to position the perfect shot, something a heavy tank struggles with immensely. The grenades are also a problem, because grenades' effectiveness is maximized when you're above the target, another thing the tank struggles from. Cannonhead can do work, but is brought down by consistency issues. Cannonhead died 5 times, 4 of them to Snailteus. Cannonhead's best mission times were 4th at Allmind, 8th at Vespars, 9th at Redguns, and 13th at Cataphract and Snail plus CC. Cannonhead's worst missions were 32nd at Sea Spider and Volta, 37th at Snailteus and IBIS, and 31st at Eckdroimoi. Cannonhead rose 3 places from the last tier list. ASTER Crown. Honestly, pretty decent for an AC with a deadweight part. The shield is unfortunately very bad in the context of this ranking, as the shield is objectively slower than not using it. ASTER Crown has some pretty good weapons and has a pretty high deathless potential, but the problem being is that the frame is so mid, it makes staying alive difficult. Stability is fine, but the AP is atrocious, and the weight of the VP20D and the LCAs on the Gridwalker give the AC shit mobility. Unlike the other ACs that sacrifice defensive power, ASTER Crown's mobility is nowhere near good enough. The LCAs also tend to run out in longer fights, significantly nerfing this AC's power. ASTER Crown had 10 deaths. ASTER Crown's best missions were 4th at Enforcement and Volta, an 8th at Rusty Flatwell, 11th at HCLC, and a 12th at the Cataphract. ASTER Crown's worst missions were a 31st at Allmind, a 33rd at Sea Spider, a 35th at Snailteus, a 39th at Eckdroimoi, and a 40th at Ayre. ASTER Crown fell 17 places from the last tier list. I completely think that not using Aster Crown against Allmind gave me a way better impression of what it was initially. DEADSLED. This thing could be at high A on a blue gen, on God. DEADSLED suffers from poor damage. Its burst is pretty good, but the impact buildup is inconsistent, so landing staggers can be difficult. Additionally, because the LRA takes 5 years to charge up on a Ming Tang, this AC has to both rely on Wurgers for staggers and for stagger punish. Thankfully, AA can substitute, but the AA is not always online. The lack of a blue gen means the Wurger also isn't doing anywhere near as much damage either, and the supply recovery is ass. DEADSLED died 6 times. DEADSLED's best times were a 7-foot Grid 086, an 8-foot the Redguns, 9-foot Eckdroimoi, and 10-foot Balteus, Helicopter, and Snail CC and Alt Coral. DEADSLED's worst missions were 23rd Iggy and Volt, 24th HCLC, 29th Rusty Flatwell, a 33rd Allmind, and a 39th Branch. DEADSLED fell 1 place. Headbringer, an extremely consistent preset. Ludlow and Curtis are a strong impact combo, and the solid frame with good defenses, combo with the shield, are a good combo. The epitome of a B rank. It's good, but just not excellent. The damage, however, is fairly low, and it features no consistent sources of punish damage outside of a mediocre charge Curtis, which is also hard to hit on any non-boss enemy. Ludlow ammo can also be a big concern, but I still think it's a perfect B rank, all things considered. Headbringer only died once. Headbringer's best missions were 8th at Snailteus, 16th at IBIS, 19th at Allmind, 20th at Freud, and 23rd at HCLC. Headbringer's worst missions were a 32nd in Inspection, 33rd at Iggy and Volt, 34th at Grid 086 and Depth 2, and 37th at the Eckdroimoi. Headbringer rose 3 places from the last tier list. Trainer, actually just straight up a Headbringer ult, yet somehow with 2 more deaths it was only 50 seconds slower. While Headbringer's shield gives it more survivability, Trainer's better defense outright and arguably better gen for the build allows it to be more offensively present than Headbringer. If I was playing better, Trainer probably would have beaten Headbringer. But honestly, these two ACs are so similar, I'd be fully open to giving either the top spot. Trainer died 3 times. Trainer's best missions were a 5th at Snailteus, 7th at Inspection, 11th at Freud, 12th at HCLC, and 15th at Volta. Trainer's worst missions were 33rd at Depth 2 and Redguns, and 38th at Branch, Vespars, and Snail plus Chatty Carla. Trainer rose 5 places from the last list. Mind Beta. Bro, never knew Kate Markson was such a gambler. This AC is so all or nothing. The build gimmick is entirely a charged dagger into a full charge Kurosawa into the normal dagger combo, with the laser all providing some extra damage. When the combo works, it works. It hits stupid fast times. When it doesn't, last place times. While the good frame and shield help to keep this Mind Beta alive, the orbit basically does nothing. This AC could do so much better if the AC had more tools to deal impact or an extra option for more stagger damage. But the consistency issues of the build are keeping it low. Mind Beta died 11 times. Mind Beta's best missions were 1st at Eckdroimoi and Branch, 3rd at Alt Coral, 5th at Iggy and Vol, and 7th at the Sea Spider. Mind Beta's worst missions were a 33rd Freud, a 37th Allmind, 39th Balteus, 40th Cataphract, and a last place Volta. Mind Beta's placement was unchanged. Echo, a burst damage specialist. We've got 3 strong tools with high damage, high impact, and high punish. Echo has excellent output, the problem being with some of the details. Echo is a lightweight and fairly frail, while also having 2 weapons that lock her in place. Well, technically only 1, but honestly, uncharged Restive is so ass. The Coral Missile also suffers majorly from the Accel's bad lock time. The ability of Echo to deal some crazy punish damage remains, but the reliance on firing sense and maximize damage can create some problems. Echo died 8 times. Echo's best missions were 4th at Branch and Depth 2, 5th at Snail plus Chatty Carla, 6th at Walter, and 8th at Eckdroimoi and Alt Coral. Echo's worst missions were a 34th at Helicopter and Snailteus, a 35th at Enforcement, a 39th at Rusty Flatwell, and last at HCLC. Echo fell 5 places from the last ranking. How? Bar 1, I think you could argue that How is the highest skill ceiling of every preset. Like we've all seen the videos, like one guy who does it online, right? Perfectly timing combos to land these ridiculously high damage. Like Echo, How has excellent damage, impact, and punish, while also having assault armor. The problem with How is that it definitely feels like there's a lot of waiting. Charging the missile and the rifle, the long cooldown of every part. If you don't manage to burst an entire AC down at once, you'll tend to have to wait a bit for everything to come back online. And when enemies have repair kits, this can sometimes be a problem. That being said, I think I played How very poorly in my Gauntlet run. I'd be fully open to moving How up on the list if I saw some crazy times. How died 9 times. How's best mission was a 1st at Vespars, a 5th at Sea Spider, a 6th at Enforcement and Alt Coral, and a 9th at Rusty Flatwell. How's worst missions were a 35th at Cataphract and Branch, 38th at Walter, 39th at Redguns, and 40th at Iggy and Volt. How fell 8 places from the last list. A tier. Okay, we're finally coming to the good ones. You could use this AC to beat the entire game. However, unlike the S tiers, they might have a few problems they still need addressed. Milktooth. Okay, I know what you're probably thinking. Molten, what the fuck are you smoking? I want some too. Now, you just gotta hear me out. Milktooth has some crazy splits. 4th at Volta by a mile, 2nd at the Helicopter, 5th at Cataphract, and a top 10 Sea Spider, IBIS, and Snail and Chatty Carla. Brute was just over an hour 40 minutes at Allmind, and only had to proceed bad time because of the bad Allmind. Excluding its 5 worst times, Milktooth was better than at least half the presets for most missions. A potential deathless Milktooth would be 95 minutes, 11th place among all presets. This AC is on Mule, and could possibly hit top 12. Fucking Michael Zacher gave Milktooth Mule and Wrecker Arms because Milktooth could unironically hit first without it. Okay, enough with the glaze, you probably want to know why. Milktooth has a chainsaw, automatically giving it some of the best punish damage in the game, even on Wrecker. Milktooth also has a Morley for very fast staggers. Timing with the missiles can insta-stagger some enemies like the Cataphract. Flamethrower is actually really neat here as well. If you inflict ACS anomaly with it, you can stagger a lot of things with the Morley. And for good measure, Assault Armor. Now, unfortunately, the AC is very inconsistent. The Mule is so killer here. The chainsaw lunge is only about 100 meters, so if the enemy isn't directly in front of your face, you can miss it sometimes. Milktooth's heavy frame and slow boost can also mean that getting to that position is hard. But it says magnitudes that even with these weaknesses, this AC could land in the top 25%. But it's because of these inconsistencies I cannot place it higher. Milktooth died 13 times, 10 of them to Allmind. Milktooth's best missions were 1st at Volta, 2nd at the Helicopter, 5th at the Cataphract, 6th at Snail plus Chatty Carla, and 8th at the Grid 086, Sea Spider, and IBIS. Milktooth's worst missions were 31st at Branch, a 34th at Balteus, 36th at Allmind, 39th at HCLC, and a 38th at Iggy and Volt. Milktooth rose 14 places from the last tier list. Liger. Liger just has some really strong and consistent impact. You can basically just hold down the fire button for the Gatling guns, tying shell on the Songbirds, and the Gats will never overheat. Fully using the Tetrapod to maintain mobility and creating a wall of high impact and good damage. The problem arises with the mobility, more specifically EN recharge. This thing has almost no spare EN load. Supply efficiency is in the 1500s. Recharge on this large capacity gen is extremely slow. This results in Ligertail sometimes running out of EN at the essential moments, sometimes resulting in death. Ligertail died 4 times. Ligertail's best missions were 10th at Vespars, 11th at Redguns, 12th at Alt Coral, 16th at Enforcement, and 20th at Iggy and Volt, and Grid 086. Ligertail's worst missions were 31st at Sea Spider, Eckdroimoi, and Snail plus Chatty Carla, 32nd at Cataphract, and 36th at Ayre. Ligertail fell 7 positions from the last list. Bitter Promise. Huh. The Morley is really that good, huh? Bitter Promise features good survivability, decent mobility, and a good weapon combo. Laser handguns provide damage, the rifle provides sustain, and the Morley provides some burst and punish. Unfortunately, it is held a little bit back by its VP-20S gen, slightly worsening mobility and notably brought down by the missile FCS, on a build with no missiles, which can create some consistency issues. Bitter Promise died 5 times. Bitter Promise's best missions were 5th at Enforcement, 6th at Helicopter and Cataphract, 7th at HCLC, and a 12th at Inspection and IBIS. Bitter Promise's worst missions were 27th at Rusty Flatwell and Ayre, a 32nd at Snailteus, a 36th at Snail and Chatty Carla, and 39th at Vespars and Volta. Bitter Promise rose 12 places from the last tier list. TSUBASA, the AC of mid-wit Flatwell. If I had it my way, this thing would be going right next to UAU. But alas, I must be objective. TSUBASA is a lightweight kite. Mobility is superb and defense is awful. Offensively, it can keep range very well, and the little gem helps you either stagger punish when you want mobility, or stagger build up when you need power, creating a pretty good offensive combo. That being said, defenses, again, are garbage, so mess up your move and you will take a heavy punish. TSUBASA died 2 times. TSUBASA's best missions were 8th at HCLC, 11th at the IBIS, 13th at Snailteus and Allmind, and 17th at Ayre and Volta. TSUBASA's worst missions were 31st at the Cataphract, 32nd at Rusty Flatwell, 35th at the Helicopter, 36th at Branch, and 38th at Depth 2. TSUBASA fell 2 places from the last tier list. Hermit. Hermit has some high impact and good damage, while also maintaining a good offensive range. The missiles deal good damage if they line up with a stagger, and with a bazooka plus pistol combo, that's not terribly difficult to do, especially combined with a fairly fast reload of the missiles. As for the negatives, the link tie is really bad. Hermit's often struggling to have any energy at any time, so you gotta be careful not to burn it. Hermit's best missions were 7th at Volta, 16th at Snailteus, Alt Coral and Allmind, and 17th at Ayre. Hermit's worst missions were 34th at the Cataphract and Branch, 36th at the Sea Spider, and 38th at Eckdroimoi and Redguns. Hermit rose 8 places from the last list. Shinobi. Rubicon's biggest weeb actually has a pretty decent AC. Hammer on Femeza arms is pretty good punish, and the shotgun's also really good. Combined with the stagger from the javelin, this AC is some really good punish. Mine Alpha Core also provides a lot of defense, making Shinobi surprisingly durable for its speed. The biggest problem with the build is the Rensetsu AI, which is at best a little aid in stagger build up when you need to focus on mobility, and at worst is literally just dead weight when you maximize hammer use. However, even with these weaknesses, Shinobi's still pretty good. Shinobi died 2 times. Shinobi's best missions were 4th at Snailteus, 5th at Volta, 6th at Allmind, 7th at IBIS, and 10th at Enforcement and Rusty Flatwell. Shinobi's worst missions were 27th at the Redguns and Alt Coral, 28th at Balteus, 31st at Iggy and Volta, 32nd at Vespars, and 37th at the Cataphract. Shinobi fell 12 places. Holy initial glaze moment. What the fuck was I thinking putting this just below? Like, it was second place, wasn't it? Like, holy shit. Mind Alpha. Okay, so imagine Shinobi, but better. We got more AP, stronger stagger build-up, more consistent damage, and the ability to punish with either the hammer or the javelin, instead of just having to accept a fairly weak hold and punish on a hammer stagger. One notable thing is that Mind Alpha is very firing stance focused. Therefore, there is chance for failure because of the necessity of firing stance. However, I believe the extra possibility of damage in consideration of the fact that I don't think the consistency is too big a problem if you play well, I'm placing Mind Alpha over Shinobi. Mind Alpha had 5 deaths. Mind Alpha's best missions were 1st at the Helicopter, 3rd at Snail and Chatty Carla, 4th at the Sea Spider, and 6th at Grid 086, Vespars and IBIS. Mind Alpha's worst missions were 31st at Inspection, 32nd at Ayre and Alt Coral, 34th with the Redguns, and 36th at Cataphract. Mind Alpha fell 10 places, another wholly initial overglaze. Reconfig. Reconfig is so interesting. It seems to be frequently glazed, but it either has stupid splits or just mediocre splits. The biggest component of the build is the laser blade on the 46S arms, giving stupid high damage, especially on the punish. The problem is the rest of the kit. The plasma rifle and the LCS are by no means bad, but it leaves a lot to be desired on the stagger front, while also not being excellent for stagger punish either. They're just good. This leaves Reconfig in an awkward position where sometimes you are struggling to hit stagger with the low impact of the LCS and PR. Because the laser blade is so much of the build, viability often depends on how easy it is to use the blade. Defense is good and mobility is mediocre, but overall the potential for great damage gives this AC a pretty high position. Reconfig had 5 deaths. Reconfig's best missions were a 3rd at Iggy and Volt, a 4th at Inspection and Freud, and 6th at Sea Spider and Redguns. Reconfig's worst missions were 25th at Allmind, 31st at Snailteus, 33rd at Volta, 34th at Ayre, and 36th at IBIS. Reconfig fell 4 places from the last list. Corporation. Laser drones are fucking nutty, man. They provide constant damage and excellent stagger punish while also keeping up stagger pretty well. The Chan and laser rifle also combo pretty well for good stagger and damage. The build, however, has low defense and it's very easy to die quickly without realizing. The vertical missiles are pretty trash, and mobility, while not bad, could be better with the weight slowing down the Alula reload. Corporation had 4 deaths. Corporation's best missions were a 1st at Cataphract, a 2nd at Sea Spider and Snailteus, and a 3rd at Redguns and Ayre. Almost all of Corporation's splits were top 10. Corporation's worst missions were a 22nd at Rusty Flatwell, a 23rd at Ayre, 29th at Volta, 33rd at Alt Coral, and 39th at Enforcement. Corporation rose 4 places from the last tier list. Dual Nature. This preset seems mid until you come to a crazy conclusion. Stagger with the blade and punish with the bubbles. Bubble punish is nothing to scoff at, and unlike the other double bubble user, Dual Nature has a consistent stagger source. Kick into quick boost into a charged pulse blade is high impact and can usually get you staggers, letting you punish with the bubbles. This AC does however struggle with opportunities to land the blade are scarce, and while mobility is great, defenses are ass. You gotta make sure you dodge or land those perfect parries. Dual Nature died 3 times. Dual Nature's best missions were 2nd at Freud, 3rd at Branch, 5th at Balteus and HCLC, and 6th at Def 2. Dual Nature's worst missions were 20th at the Helicopter and Alt Coral, 21st at Snailteus, and 24th at Enforcement and Allmind. Dual Nature fell 6 places from the last tier list. Candle Ring. Yo, Candle Ring was so fun. My favorite part was in Enforcement Squad. Crazy. Jokes aside, Candle Ring has, I think, the strongest burst impact of all the presets. Good damage, good range, surprisingly strong stagger. The 2 hand missiles can do 2k damage if they line up over a staggered enemy, and the Songbird can put in some work if they connect at the right time. All having excellent mobility. Candle Ring does have fairly low AP and stability, and the Songbird can be inconsistent, but the overall kit is just so strong. Candle Ring died 3 times. Candle Ring's best missions were a 2nd at Eckdroimoi, a 3rd at Freud, 4th at Helicopter and Vespars, and a 6th at Balteus. Candle Ring's worst missions were a 24th at Cataphract, Rusty Flatwell and Snailteus, a 26th at Volta, and a 28th at Alt Coral. Candle Ring rose 26 places, holy underglaze. S tier, we finally come to the goats of the goats. These guys can beat the entire game easily and quickly. Open Faith, probably the biggest sleeper of the run. Open Faith surprised me. I expected missed attacks and bad mobility, but instead I got an easy to use, consistent combo AC with excellent damage and stagger. Combos are the name of the game with this AC. An AA into Laser Lance into Stun Needle does a lot of damage. And a combo I never realized, but the Stun Needle and the Stun Gun together have just enough stun generation between them to micro stagger, letting you follow with a Lance into another Needle thanks to the fast reload. The damage just does not stop coming. I was genuinely impressed. Open Faith is also basically indestructible, having extremely high AP, good stability, and incredibly high yen defense. If you play smart, you could never die. Mobility is also pretty mid outside of Assault boost, but using a lance should overcome this. Open Faith splits are a little worse than some of the ACs below it, but the consistency and lack of death risk gives this preset a higher position. Open Faith died once. Open Faith's best missions were 1st at Redguns, 2nd at Iggy and Volt, 4th at Alt Coral, and 8th at Snail plus Chatty, Carla, and Allmind. Open Faith's worst missions were 22nd at Enforcement, 23rd at Cataphract, 28th at Eckdroimoi, and 35th at Inspection and IBIS. Open Faith rose 16 places. Entangle, arguably one of the best PvP presets. It makes sense why it's this high. Entangle is extremely optimized and has no bad part. The Javelin Alpha can be used for stagger build-up or great punish, the Bubble Gun for shield breaking or good punish, Javelin Beta gives great burst impact, and the Plasma Missiles give good sustain. The frame is also basically perfect as well. Good internals, and while the build would most likely be better with a melee over bubbles, within its archetype it's basically perfect. Entangle died 2 times. Entangle's best missions were a 3rd at Snailteus, a 5th at Redguns, 7th at Helicopter, and 8th at Branch, Freud, and Ayre. Entangle's worst missions were a 19th at Def 2, 24th at Sea Spider, 25th at Cataphract and Vespars, and a 29th at Alt Coral. Entangle rose 6 places from the last list. Nightfall. Hey yo bro, Malta is smoking again. Yo, you've got to hear me out again. Pile Bunker. The Pile Bunker carries the build so hard. But don't just take my word for it. Look at the 4 gold splits and top 10 times for 15 out of 23 of the missions. Nightfall gets better every time I use it. Maybe it's a speedrun experience flowing into my veins, but Nightfall is just straight ridiculous. That's not even mentioning how Nightfall died at the Vespars and got 7th place. His deathless time clears 2nd by almost 30 seconds. A deathless Nightfall is theoretically 7th place among the presets. But now let's look at why Nightfall isn't up there. The Scudder is mid, Duos mismatch against effective range, Songbirds can be inconsistent, the frame is overall really mid and suboptimal, the booster is pretty bad for the build, the gen is bad for the build, combined with a low supply adjustment on the core and mediocre supply efficiency for slow recharge. All this, and yet a Pile Bunker saves it. I even think the time should go lower. I initially placed this at like the bottom of S, but after reviewing the splits, I put it above Open Faith and Entangle for the gold splits and higher potential. Nightfall died 6 times. Nightfall's best time was 1st at Sea Spider, Rusty Flatwell, IBIS, and Snailteus, and 2nd at Grid086, HCLC, and Ayre. Nightfall's worst times were 20th at Def 2, 21st at Alt Coral and Allmind, 30th at Snail plus Chatty Carla, and 41st at Redguns. Nightfall rose 13 places from the last tier list. Guidance. I fucking told y'all Guidance was the GOAT! Stun Baton forever. Pardon me. Guidance has a Stun Baton on 46 S-arms. No joke, this already makes it crazy. The Stun Baton charge can be spammed for high impact and high punish damage, and the micro stags it inflicts also make landing follow-ups really easy, especially against larger and heavier targets. The Earshot is a perfect complementary. The two in tandem can stagger practically everything, leading to the Stun Baton punish, into another stagger, into a rinse repeat, oh hey that guy turned into sand. As for the rest of the kit, the shield is fine, the hand missiles are a little I think maybe the laser shotty for extra damage and stagger source would be nice. The frame's high stability and okay AP, and the Flugel is goated for the extra melee speed. Guidance' only weakness is shields and lightweights, as you can't do the charge baton strats against opponents with a shield up. But honestly, the Earshot can just punch through that, and lightweight can sometimes escape stagger before the baton even reaches them. The fact that the preset lands at the top of S basically off the Stun Baton and Earshot alone says a lot. Guidance died once. It wasn't even to an enemy, I just messed up a laser dodge at Ocean Crossing. Guidance' best missions were a 1st at Enforcement, a 2nd at Allmind, a 3rd at Def 2, a 4th at Redguns, and a 5th at IBIS and Alt Coral. Guidance' worst missions were a 23rd at Branch and Freud, a 26th at Rusty Flatwell, a 33rd at HCLC, and a 35th at Sea Spider. Guidance rose 2 positions from the last tier list. Archdick. I have written this name so much I can spell it off the top of my head. God, this game has me by the balls. Archdick is one of the strongest stagger punishers in the game, with a Barsho Pulse Blade. Extreme ease in landing thanks to its Hikaku booster. Stagger generation is good with missiles in the Rensetsu rifle, able to finish a stagger after a charged Pulse Blade lands first. And the Napalm gives him extra damage against large enemies or on the punish, where using it can inflict ACS anomaly, making the next stagger faster for a faster repunish. Coral AA is also very strong here. The Coral AA into a blade almost one-cycled Raven. Simply shooting him once with a rifle beforehand would have given me it. The AC also has some really strong stagger and punish, giving it a great time. Barsho frame is mid, but it's way less a concern when the AC is good. The Order's EN capacity can suck a little sometimes, but overall isn't too much of a concern. Archdick died 2 times. Archdick's best mission were 2nd at the Cataphract, Depth 2, 3rd at Vespars, and 4th at Balteus and Snail plus Chatty Carla. Archdick's worst missions were 14th at HCLC and Branch, 17th at IBIS, 19th at Volta, 25th at Alt Coral, and last at Eckdroimoi. Archdick rose 12 places. S+. Every AC here could be considered the best in the game. The difference between each preset came down to seconds. However, I do believe my ranking does reflect what preset deserves what position. Steel Haze. Okay, y'all saw the thumbnail. Steel Haze is third. Steel Haze actually has excellent sustained impact generation and one of the best and most consistent stagger punishes in the game with the slicer into AA. Steel Haze also has the best mobility in the game, hands down. The problem is that Steel Haze is also the most frail AC in the game, having the lowest AP and stability. A single mistake can easily mean your death, and that is why it's third, as the other S+ presets also can deal the same nutty damage, but with less risk of death. Steel Haze also has notably mediocre damage when not stagger punishing, so sometimes stagger punishes won't kill and you'll see slower times against high stability enemies. Steel Haze died once to HCLC. Without this death, the whole Gauntlet would have hit a 1 hour 27 minute time. Steel Haze's best missions are 5 gold splits at Balteus, Step 2, Freud, Ayre, and Snail, plus Chatty, Carla. Steel Haze hit a top 10 time for 19 out of 23 in the missions. Steel Haze's worst missions were a 10th at the Sea Spider, 20th at the Vespars, 25th at the Helicopter, 28th at Volta, and last at HCLC. Bro actually has a top 10 as his worst splits, Lamau. Steel Haze fell 2 places from the last list. Locksmith is crazy, but it turns out having 1400 impact ready every 5 seconds when you have 2 of the strongest punish tools in the game, which by the way you can both use at the same time, can lead to ridiculously high punish damage. Additionally, Locksmith's frame is excellent, great AP and stability with good speed thanks to Flugel, the perfect midweight. Locksmith is not perfect however, it does have the Turner which is basically useless and the VE20A, which is arguably one of the worst gens in the game when you don't have an EN spec weapon. No Patrick, the laser drones and laser blades do not count as EN weapons. But again, Locksmith has a dead weight weapon and a shit gen and it hit second place. Number 1 in the arena for a reason, on God. Locksmith had no deaths. Locksmith's best missions were a first to Iggy and Vol, a second place at IBIS, Snail plus CC and Alt Coral, and 5 separate third places. Locksmith's worst missions were at 8th at Inspection, 9th at Freud, 10th at Volta, 12th at Snailteus, and 14th at Redguns. I think it says a lot that while Locksmith did not have the flashy gold splits of some of the other presets, going top 10 for 21 out of 23 missions, and top 15 for all of them, it's amazing in my book. Locksmith rose 3 places from the last tier list. Umbrox. The Queen's Chariot cannot be stopped! So, who needs strong melee punish? Just, like, slap the strongest weapons on the boat and go ham. And ham Umbrox goes. The Majestic has good damage and excellent impact with range that's also long, as well as stagger extending. The LRB is ridiculously high damage normally and can reach stupid levels when charged. The Earshot is the biggest single source of impact and non-direct damage in the game, barring melee, while also having fantastic range. And the LCD has ridiculous DPS and a strong charge attack. And while I wasn't able to pull it off at every opportunity, Umbrox can literally one-cycle away mid-weight by comboing Earshot into Majestic to charge LCD, to charge LCB. Like, just watch this. Absolutely insane damage. And while stability is just alright, AP is ridiculous. You have to actively try to get Umbrox killed. Part of me wants to complain about the mobility being fairly slow outside of Assault Boost and a horrible gen for recharge, but that same gen is what facilitates the stupid fast kills as well, so I can't really complain too much. This AC is basically perfect and absolutely sweeps house. Granted, I think a couple of the presets optimized could beat Umbrox, as Ox is basically at the peak and cannot be improved while the others have room to grow. But it's still just the best preset by a goddamn mile. Umbrox had 0 deaths. Umbrox's best missions were 4 gold splits at Infection, Grid 086, Alt Coral, and Allmind, and 3 second places at Balteus, Redguns, and Rusty and Flatwell. Umbrox's worst missions were 12th at Snail plus Chatty, Carla, 13th at Freud, 17th at Snailteus, 19th at Sea Spider, and 24th at Eckdroimoi. These splits make Umbrox look initially a little worse, but please consider that 15 out of 23 of the splits were top 5! Absolutely insane. Additionally, the Eckdroimoi split could have been way faster because I lost like 20 seconds messing up my movement, and I managed to outright one cycle in Eckdroimoi. Umbrox rose 5 places to claim the best preset. And with that, here is a completed tier list. I'll also have the spreadsheet and the preset Gauntlet videos linked below so you can review them if you want some more info. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking through this video. If the 15,000 word script is saying anything and the checking the recording 1 hour 52 minute recording is saying anything, this video is going to be very long, so double thanks. I want to take this moment to thank everybody who watched the Twitch streams live and everybody here who watched the original video as well. That video was a lightning in a bottle that told me I could take this whole YouTube thing a little bit more seriously. A dream I've had since I was younger. So thank you so much for that. If you enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing so you don't miss the next video. I think I'll release some easier to make challenge videos next, but I'll definitely do more stuff like this in the future, so you don't want to miss it. I'd also like to point to my Twitch where I stream 2 to 3 times a week playing Armored Core and other games I like as well at twitch.tv/moltenamf. Follows there are greatly appreciated as well. And now a massive thanks to my Patreons. Their support gets me one step closer to quitting my retail job, so their support is greatly appreciated. And if you'd like to support me yourself, please consider joining my Patreon at patreon.com/moltenamf. Any support means the world. Now to thank my Patrons. Thank you so much to KZ and Too Late and Toast Sandwich at Zehi tier, and Hura and SG Sama at Rusty tier. With that, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see y'all in the next one. Bye!